Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to reintroduce to you now. Dr. Miki Ben-Dor is very much a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out Dr. Ben-Dor's first appearances on episodes 77, 323, 428, and 684 of Boundless Body Radio. Dr. Miki Ben-Dor is a paleoanthropologist researching the association between diet during the Paleolithic and human evolution. He specializes in understanding the period of our evolution known as the Stone Age. Dr. Bendor retired from his successful career as an economist at age 52 to pursue his passion for learning about the evolution of our species and earned his PhD in archaeology from the University of Tel Aviv. He also has a bachelor's degree in economics and a master's degree in business administration. He has recently released several studies, including his fantastic and critically acclaimed paper called Man the Fat Hunter. He is the author of the book, Live Paleo Style, Overcome the Ancestral-Modern Mismatch to Regain Your Natural Wellbeing, which has recently been translated to English from the original text in Hebrew and is absolutely one of my very favorite books. You can find Dr. Bendor and his blog at www.paleostyle.com and also on Twitter at BendorMickey. Dr. Miki Ben-Dor, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
Always glad to be back.
It's your fifth time, man. That's great.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Why not? We always have
if we
something.
enjoy it, why not?
Exactly. You always have something interesting going on. We always have really great discussions. I'm so excited to chat with you about a recent paper that you just published. And I also, you and I talked a little bit offline about talking about how papers get published, which I find fascinating. I've never published a paper and don't assume I'm going to do it anytime soon. So I'd love to talk to you about that as well. Before we do, though, I just wanted to ask you a theme that comes up a lot with your work has to do with the kind of caloric exchange for doing certain things. How many calories does it take to produce a certain amount of calories that we intake versus the output that we have? And I wonder if you reflect back on your career in economics, do you think that kind of background in economics helped you understand things in the terms of caloric exchange the way you understand them now?
Absolutely. Looking for calories and looking for the energetic returns, which is what I do, is actually like following the money when you look at the economic situations, because this is the exchange coin, the exchange uh, coin that is used. Energy in biology is like money in economics.
Yeah.
So definitely, and all the rules, by the way, apply. The marginal returns, the diminishing marginal returns, all that stuff applies. So yes, definitely. I think this is really one of my fortunate, steps that I did in my career was to study economics in BA and then business administration, and only then get into anthropology, paleoanthropology.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
it
came with a
definitely.
background that is really not many people have it. Although I must tell you that there are people who are very familiar with economics and use economics. I'm not the only one, but they tend to specialize in models, in modeling, and I think that I have a little wider view of the process.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not so technical as they are. They are more mathematical, and I apply the principles of economics more than the mathematical side of it. I don't use mathematics that much.
Mm.
Anyway, so yes, I think this is my lucky combination that allowed me to look at the whole area of paleoanthropology from a completely different and new point of view. Yes,
Yeah. It's
definitely.
very interesting. It definitely shines through in all of your work. And I think back, it never really occurred to me, although when I think back on my own history, like I used to do a garden and remembering how much work it would take to prepare a garden. And people continue to do it. In fact, about 5 minutes away from my house, there's several garden plots that people can rent. And I see people working all summer long in a really hot condition. We live in Salt Lake City, which is a desert condition, days over 100 degrees in the summertime. It's so much work. And now all the fruit is ripe, like the tomatoes, peppers. There's a few corn stalks. There's all these plants that are like available now. Dude, it would be like 2 days worth of calories. Maybe you could eat all of the food available in multiple garden plots. You'd be gone with it, like you'd be gone through it all in a few days. And you think about the amount of work as far as calories goes to cultivate those foods and what you get out of it. It's not even close.
Yeah, well, in Paleolithic conditions, the economy is completely different, of course. People don't raise they just find it. So in that sense, it's sort of less expensive. But the problem is that you don't have domesticated fruits and vegetables. So they are, most of them, very, very fibrous. And to get the energy out of them, you have to prepare them. You have to work a lot to prepare them. And in the end, you don't get a lot of energy out of them. So, so the energetic return, when people did the calculations, the energetic return on plants is about 1/10 of what it is on animals. So, and this is the reason, because they need a lot of preparation, and in the end, you don't get a lot of energy because as humans, we are not really built to obtain a lot of energy from fibers. This is one of the difference if you look at the chimpanzee, and it's an old story. I repeated it many times. But the chimpanzee's stomach is built to deal with fibers and to get energy out of fibers. And we don't have, our colon is about 75% smaller than that of a chimpanzee. So the vessel in which the fermentation occurs is much smaller. So really we are not built, we actually evolved away from the ability to exploit fiber for energy. But on the other hand, we have longer small intestines, which is really it helps us to get energy out of protein and fat. So this is why the energetic return of humans is much, much better from animals than from plants.
Yeah, that's very interesting. One just quick follow-up question from that. You mentioned the difference between cultivating plants versus just finding plants that are growing organically. And I understand that there's a different amount of caloric exchange as far as the output. One, you're doing all the work where, on the other side, nature's doing all the work. When I travel around natural landscapes around, my house, whether it be the mountains, the valleys, the desert, around rivers, whatever, I don't find lots of even those like fibrous kind of plants that I think I could eat. Now, was that just my ignorance that I can't find them, or is it true that those plants are just like exceedingly rare?
Depends where. For instance, in rainforest, you may find fruits that are quite edible, and also it also depends on the season, of course. This is another problem with the plants, because animals are always there, and plants most of them are very seasonal. And if you look at the human evolution, most of it occurred in savannas. And in savannas, you have even less. Most of the plants in the savannas are, most of them are not edible plants. They are, for herbivores. They are this ideal food for herbivores, which can actually extract the energy from the fiber, but they are not useful for humans at all. So in savannas, you can dig and get some potatoes like tubers. Uh, but again, most of them are quite fibrous. Actually, it's interesting that the non-fibrous one are deeper in the ground because the fiber actually protect them. So the ones that are non-fibrous need to be much deeper in the ground. So and that of course costs energy to get them out of there. So there are not many. They are not. You cannot see them easily, and you have to dig. And they are fibrous.
Oh,
So yeah,
very interesting. Wow. Yeah, I've just been pondering that a lot recently, like the implausibility of trying to extract any kind of I don't know, measurable amount of calories from plants would just be so difficult. Whether you're cultivating, trying to find them, trying to prepare them, like you said, the nature of the plants would be so different. The seasonality of everything, it just seems like the percentage that we would have taken from plants versus animals is just so tilted one way to the next. So it's really interesting to contemplate. And I appreciate your opinion with all your knowledge on that.
yeah. But I want to, at least to put some balance in it and say that people did eat plants, and there are seasons, for instance, where berries are, you know, like short seasons. When the Hadza, for instance, most of their food come from berries. Uh, there's another thing there that is that when there are elephants around, the elephant eat the berries. But the Hadza now, there are no elephants, so they are eating the berries, and everybody thinks that the Hadza is a good example of the past, but they are not, because in the past they had elephants around. Now
Yeah,
they
that's a
Anyway,
really
so
good point.
let's start with the. Uh, I just want to maybe to take this opportunity to discuss how a paper is all the way that the paper goes through from the idea stage to the publication. So one day, my partner, which is a professor at Tel Aviv University, Ran Barkai, uh, called me and said, "Look, I'm guest editing uh, uh, some in some in some journal uh, a section about the late quaternary megafauna extinction." Now, let me just give some background. Late quaternary megafauna extinction is a phenomena that is well known and well researched, and there's no question that it is a real phenomena in which large animals became extinct, large species of large animals, like, for instance, uh, the mega herbivores, so over 1,000 kilos, 40 out of 48 species became extinct at that time. As you go down the line, the percentage decline, but still, it's quite significant even in animals, let's say, that weigh 100 kilos. But when you come down to 10 kilos, 5 kilos, rabbits and things like that, nothing happened to them. So it's called the late quaternary megafauna. Megafauna is defined as over 50 kilos, over 100 pounds. Not to be mixed with mega herbivores, which are over 1,000 kilos. Anyway, so he said, I'm guest editing in this special edition, and why don't we write something to that? So I thought about it for a minute, and I said, okay, let's do it because I have this theory, right? A unifying theory that a decline in prey size created energetic pressure, and most of what we see, and most of the major key phenomena that we see during the Paleolithic period is a result of adaptation to hunting smaller and smaller prey. Now, this is a unifying theory, and a unifying theory takes many, many years to catch and to take hold, especially as the phenomena of decline in the size or extinction or decline in populations of large animals is not clearly visible in earlier periods. So earlier periods, it's always like that, the earlier you go, the strong is the signal, okay? Because it's had a lot of time to get interrupted. So let's say if you have an archaeological site, so somebody built something on it, etc., etc. So the more time passes, the less the signal is clear. So, but we have some information, and we thought that we had enough information to show that the decline in prey size started about 1 million years ago. Now, this late quaternary megafauna extinction started about 50, 60,000 years ago. So I said, okay, that will be good because in this case, at least we don't have to prove the extinction. We just have to prove the adaptation. Okay? So at least we have one side of the theory that is clearer, and maybe it will be easier to get accepted because what happened about 50,000 years ago started what is called the Upper Paleolithic Revolution. It was called a revolution because the change was so significant and it happened so quickly that whoever studied it decided to call it a revolution. Now, this is already interesting that you have, on the one hand, a megafauna extinction, and on the other hand, a revolution. Now, many, many researchers worked on what caused this extinction. And I'm not saying that it's 100% accepted, but it's quite accepted that humans contributed quite significantly to that extinction. And one, for instance, of the reason why people think that is that wherever humans migrated to during that period, that was a period of migration to Australia, to the Americas, to many islands. So whenever people came, there was an extinction of large animals. So this is one. There are many other reasons, but this is one, just the one example. So there's a lot of discussion about what caused the evolution. But there is no discussion whatsoever about what this extinction did to humans. None, nobody, as far as I know, ever made the connection between the two events, the late quaternary megafauna extinction and the Upper Paleolithic Revolution. And so I thought that would be a good opportunity to do that. And I wrote the paper describing the megafauna extinction. That was easy because I had all the papers. And then I started describing one by one some of the phenomena that I thought can be explained by that extinction. Okay? For instance, the bow and arrow, or the use of bow and arrow, show up during that period. Now, bow and arrows are a good system to hunt small animals. You can hunt large animals with them, but they are really almost 100% required. There are other methods to hunt smaller animals, but bow and arrow is the one that is, if you look today, is the most used system. Because if you compare it to the previous system, which was spears, yeah, to hunt a 25 kilo deer that runs at, I don't know, maybe 70 kilometers per hour, yeah, uh, with a spear from God knows 30 meters is impossible. But you can do it with a bow and arrow.
Mm.
So so this is one of the phenomena that you can explain how humans started to get adapted to the decline in the prey size. Yeah. Another one, which is I don't know how long I want to go into it, but another one, the one that really uh, makes a lot of sense, but it was most difficult to pass through, is actually the transition to agriculture, because the humans, in my opinion, what I think is that the decline in prey size was so uh, large, was so significant that there was just not enough. And I don't know, we went into it in the past, but maybe I should go into it now also. Humans need fat, yeah, because we are limited in the amount of protein that we can consume to about 35% of the calories, 40% of the calories. So you need 60% to come either from plants or from the fat of the animals that you hunt. So there are signs that humans were crazy about fat and hunting the fat and transporting only the fat parts of the animals to the central site. There are many signs that humans needed fat, and they went to a long distance to get fatter animals. They used to hunt the prime adults, not the young and not the old, which is for a predator is a crazy strategy, because the young and the old are the easiest to hunt, easier to hunt than the prime adults. Prime adults have experience, and they have the power, and they have the speed and the vigilance to run away from you or to fight you. But that's human concentrated on prime adults, because prime adults have higher fat content. The young ones need the fat, need the everything they can get to grow, so they don't store a lot of fat. And the old ones already can't eat that much, because most of them the teeth becomes dysfunctional with the
Interesting.
age. So they're not eating that much. So they don't have a lot of fat. So really, if you want to get fat, you need to get the so in the end, and also large animals have more fat than smaller animals. So what happened, according to the theory, is that when this late quaternary megafauna extinction took place, less and less large fat animals you can get. In the end, you're left, and you can see it in many places. You end up hunting 10, 15, 25 kilos animals that don't have a lot of fat to start with. And really, you start to hunt the young one as well, because there are not many old ones. You start to boil the bones to get the little fat that's in the bones, which is crazy job. You have to break the bones, and they are not that breakable when they are fresh. So you have to break the bones too small, and you have to boil the bones, and you really don't have like a vessel to boil them in. So you dig in the ground, you cover it with sorry, with skin, and you bring stones and to boil it, and the stones get broken, and the end you end up collecting stones from further and further away. So it's a mess. But still, humans did it just to get some fat. And in the end, they had no choice but to grow their own food.
Mm.
And gradually, that's what happened. So that was and by the way, grow their own food, I mean grow their plants and grow the animals. It's not just the plants in agriculture. At the same time that humans started to grow plants, they started to grow animals. And animals were domesticated to contain more fat. You can find it in Darwin. That's something that Darwin actually said, that domesticated animals have more fat than wild animals. The reason is, one of the reasons is that they don't have to run away. They are guarded, so they can be fatter. They don't need to be, be able to run fast. So they could carry more fat. And fat is good for animals to carry because this is like a buffer for them. So anyway, so this is another phenomena that another phenomena that you see is the shortening and localization of the cultures. So when archaeologists talk about culture, they talk about artifacts that look similar in many places. Okay, so you have a culture. The, the Ashurian culture lasted over 1.5 million years. The next culture after it, the Middle Paleolithic culture, lasted about 150,000 years. Starting and the Upper Paleolithic, starting after that. In the Upper Paleolithic, cultures used to last 10,000 years, 6,000 years, even sometimes less, and they became much more local. So the Ashurian look almost the same all over the world. The Middle Paleolithic also quite the same, or a little different, but not that much difference. But the local cultures after that became very short and very localized. And the only way to explain it is that you have the small animals are typical to a certain area, and the technology that you need to get them is specific to the landscape combination with let's say if you are in a rainforest, yeah, so you use this thing that they with the mouse, the pipes that they use. So you have to because because the conditions are such that this is the so you have different tools and different cultures. So this is another phenomena that you can explain by the decline in prey size. Anyway, so I wrote the paper and I submitted it to this journal. I won't say the name of the journal. And after a while, I get the review. Okay, you get it is sent to two reviewers most of the time, sometimes to more, but no less than two normally. And the reviewer can say this. He can say, this paper is not worth publishing, is not worth worrying about. By the way, this stage can also be said already by the editor, because the first one to see it is an editor, and he decides whether he wants to send this paper for review. I don't know exactly the percentage, but I think maybe more than 50% are rejected at this stage.
Oh,
It
wow.
depends on the paper, depends on the journal. Sometimes even more. For instance, nature and science, I'm sure it's close to 80, 85, 90% at this stage, at the editor stage. Then it goes to the reviewers, who are presumably people who understand this specific area, okay, of science. Of, let's say, if you talk about paleoanthropology, there are all kinds of specialities, okay? So there's zoo archaeology, there's those that specialize in stone tools. People are specializing in different areas. And they write a review. And in the review, they can recommend either to accept it without change, which never happens. Change it, accept it with minor changes, accept it with major changes, or reject it. Okay, so I get 2 reviews back, and their recommendation is to accept it with major changes. And they write what they don't like about the paper. And as soon as I saw you see what they do is they tell you, look, according to somebody else, and they cite, okay, other papers that are going against your paper, and you have to sort of start an argument with them or change. Yeah. So I saw the names. There were 2 names on 2 papers that they have cited against what I had to say, and I said, "Oh boy, are we in trouble?" Because I see these 2 papers, these 3 papers, I see them almost in every submission that I make. One of them is came to the conclusion that there is no relation whatsoever between the prey size and the energetic return. So if you hunt an animal, if you hunt an elephant, or you hunt, let's say, a frog, okay, it's the same energetic return. Energetic return is measured by calories per hour of work. Okay, so just imagine you kill a frog, okay, and you have to also open it, etc. Let's say it takes you, I don't know, 10 minutes. On the other hand, you have an elephant. Okay, at that time, some of the elephants at that time weighed about 10,000 kilos. Okay, so it's about, no, yeah, 10,000 kilos. So it could be about 100,000 times more than the frog. Okay, so if you take 10 minutes multiplied by 100,000, yeah, just to get the same. So it really is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous to anybody who studied economics, because economics, the first thing that you learn in economics is that size has an advantage. Okay, like if, let's say, I, I don't want to start wasting time with examples here, but it's so obvious that getting a large package is better than getting 10 smaller packages and dealing with each of them individually. Yeah. For me, it doesn't make sense otherwise. So anyway, but that's what I think doesn't matter. I have to show it, and I did. But and then another one actually came to the opposite conclusion. So the smaller the animal, the higher the return. Especially they don't like elephants. And they said that elephants, yeah, maybe it grows with size, but elephant is too big and the whole thing collapses and the return is, and all of it is based on recent ethnographic reports. Yeah. Now, the, the ethnography is a pain in the ass. Is, I mean, because they they think that what was, let's say, 10 years ago in the jungle of Congo, yeah, is the same that what was 100,000 years ago in the savannas of Tanzania. Okay. For instance, the elephants, that there are no elephants, that there are no hunters of elephants only in the jungle today. You don't find any hunters that hunt elephants in the open space because they are all in reserves, in nature reserves. Uh, but to hunt an elephant in the jungle is completely different story than to hunt an elephant in a savannah. Okay, to look for it, just the search time. Okay, in the savannah you cannot miss elephants. You can see it for miles and miles. You see the elephant. In the jungle, you have to spend days going inside the trees to finally find an elephant, and then you start to follow it. It's completely different. Anyway, so I saw these two papers. I said, "Oh boy, are we in trouble?" Because I had other papers that were already rejected because of that same problem. That people, it's like it's completely opposite the common sense that small animals are better return are better have better return than large animals. So what if there was a decline? Actually, it helped humans to have a decline because then they could. It doesn't even tie up with the fact that most of the people think that the late quaternary megafauna extinction was because of humans. So what it shows? It shows that humans were looking for this large prey, right? That's why they got extinct. If you accept that they had anything to do with it, they go to Australia 16,000 years ago. In 5,000 years or so, there are no more mega herbivores in Australia. Ah, yeah. So anyway, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, so I write, I change what some of the things that they recommend. I change others. I don't, and I argue with them, and then I send the revised version and wait. I waited about a month, and then I get a letter. Thank you very much for sending us the revision, but we decided to reject it. Okay, so what do? We resubmit it, and what I did is I strengthened the hypothesis part. In other words, I now present it as a working hypothesis for just a framework for people to think about. Okay, I don't claim that it happened. I claim that I offer it for people to work on it. See, the problem with unifying hypotheses like mine is that to test each, and there are many sub hypotheses in this, right? Agriculture is one sub hypothesis. All of them are sub hypotheses. All the unifying features are sub hypotheses. So each one has to be tested and tested worldwide. So you have to get a lot of data. Now, if I was a younger person and I had like, I don't know, 10 PhDs under my command, maybe I could convince them to do it. But since I'm alone, there's no way I can do any of it. So we did a little bit, here in the Levant, and we published a paper about the prey size decline in the Levant, and I published a paper about the association of hunting tools, the evolution of hunting tools, and I showed a little bit of prey size decline. But really, it entails collecting information from many, many sources and creating big databases and running statistical analysis, something that I don't know how to do, and I don't have time for it anyway. So I framed it as a sort of more, I emphasize more the hypothesis part of it than the conclusion part of it. And I resubmitted it. Again, I received two reviews, again, with major revisions. I did the revisions. I worked on it. Sometimes I can work on it 2, 3 weeks every day for 4, 5, 8 hours. It's a lot of work. And I submitted it, and I've waited 2 weeks. And yesterday I got the reply that it was accepted.
Wow.
So yeah. So now it was accepted and it's going to be published. And this is, it's very typical. It's very difficult of the way papers are published in science. And mine especially, because it's not like the thing is, I'm not just getting a little corner, straighten up, etc., etc. I'm talking about a major revision of the in the scientific field that I'm working on. Unifying theory is something that people don't like because it tells them that they, I give an example of a unifying theory. You know about the plate tectonic movements, right? So you have plate tectonics, and somebody came up with a theory, and it was later developed, that the movement of plate tectonics really is the reason for most of the big geological phenomena, like earthquakes and volcanoes. It depends if it moves side to side, if it moves one on top of the other, one under the other, one away from the other. So it explains a lot of major. Now that theory was first proposed about 50 years ago, something like that. More than 50 years ago, by someone whose name not just escaped my at this moment, who was a meteorologist. In other words, he was not a geologist. He wrote a book, and he went to his studies in the North Pole and died in the North Pole, froze to death.
Wow.
And the book, one or two books were left. The geologists objected him so much that they actually convened a special meeting to sort of discard it and to do anything they can. And so the conclusion from this meeting came that this theory is not correct until they developed the means to measure the magnetism or the direction of the magnetism of soil. And I don't know if you know that, but the magnet today, the magnetic direction is north, but sometimes it gets south. It's not always the same direction. And I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of years. Anyway, so it changed from time to time. So they measured the magnetism in the seafloor, and they found that sometimes the magnetism is north, and then it's south, and then it's north, and then it's south. So actually, what happens is that the tectonic plates move away from each other, and as they are created, they receive the magnetism of that time. So if you go and measure, you will find north, south, north, south, and then you find the mirror pattern on the other side of the. So at that time, that was the first time that they understood that the theory is correct. And since then, it became the theory that dictates everything. But it took about 50 years to take place.
Wow.
Because it has to go through a lot of testing, and people have to change their mind. There is a saying that the science advance one funeral at a time.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, and I I, I hate to say, but I believe in it. It's not that every scientist has, some of them do get it. They don't. Some of them get it, but some of them will never get it because this is the way they grew. And this is no. The problem is that these guys that sit on the they sit and decide which papers get accepted and which not. And so anyway, it's an interesting process to get a theory through uh, publication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, to think that you would still pursue this, knowing that you retired at age 52, you went out and got your doctorate degree, as we said in the introduction, so that you could study this further. To have to go through those frustrating processes to get a paper published, like you don't have to be doing that. You could just enjoy retirement and study this stuff on your own. But to continue to push this work forward just shows like how passionate you are about this topic and how excited you are to get this out and to have this unifying theory be accepted.
Absolutely. This is a. I tell you, I think I'm lucky. I'm lucky to have this passion and to have this interest. I'm looking at my friends. I'm 75. I'm looking at my friends. Most of them don't have it. They don't have anything special that they enjoy themselves. Uh, but I'm getting up every day and I have some purpose in life. It gives me purpose in life. That's what it does. So I don't complain about it. Actually, if it would have accepted uh, uh, so too easily, I wouldn't have anything to do anymore. So I'm glad that I still have to fight. Actually, right now I'm doing this. I'm going through the same process with a paper that was rejected twice, or by the editors, even before the review. And it's so controversial because what I did after I got this review, I decided that I'm going to write a criticism about these papers that always get thrown at me about this energetic return versus size, right? So I decided that I'm going now to take these databases and I'm going to tear them apart and I'm going to write a critic. So I wrote a critic. I sent it to one paper and to one journal, and he said, no, this is not in our. The other journal also said, well, no, no. You see, what happens is that the critic goes against people that are very well known in the area. Yeah, they have a lot of friends. I'm not saying that because they are friends, they get rejected. I don't know. It's nothing. I don't know. I don't want to say that. But the last one said, yeah, but you better go to this and that journal because this is the journal that's right for it. And he was more or less right. I didn't object to that, and I did go to this journal. And I submitted it and came back no, we cannot publish it in this way. You have to be much less polemic. Okay, so I redraw the paper, but in the end, I can't escape the fact that I'm criticizing specific, specific conclusions of other people. You can't run away from it. And if you want to call it polemic, it's polemic. So now she sent it to 4 reviewers, not 2, but 4, because it was, she didn't want to fall. I'm talking about the editor, okay? First of all, I thank her for actually deciding and having the courage to, sorry, to sort of considering publishing. It's not, she haven't agreed to publish it. But now I'm sitting with like a 4 or 5 page reviews that they're against this and they're against that and they're against this and they're against, and I have to start and reply to everybody and change the paper. So I'm changing it, a major task, but I hope in the end it will be accepted.
Wow.
So, and in the end, but the next paper after that, I can actually refer, next guy who come to me and tell me, hey, but this guy said that return, energetic return on smaller animals is much higher than, but I can refer him to my paper and says, look, go to this paper, everything is there. We'll see, we'll
Wow.
see. So
Well,
it's a constant battle.
yeah, it sounds like it. Well, yeah, when you mention your age, I actually didn't know that you were 75 and to have the energy and passion that you have for this and the work that it must take to put this stuff out is it's really amazing. And it goes right along with everything you wrote in Living Paleo Style, which again is one of my favorite books where you have purpose and meaning. And to be able to have
Right.
the energy to do all of that and the desire to share it with everyone is absolutely wonderful. I just enjoy so much all the discussions I get to have with you, and hopefully we can have another one down the road because it's absolutely fascinating. And again, like, man, it would just be very discouraging to do all the work that you do and create this unifying theory and still have to battle so much to get it put out there. But we just like love and appreciate your work so very much, and it's always such an honor to chat with you. And hopefully we can do it again very soon. Dr. Miki Ben-Dor, where would you like people to go to find you and connect with you and your work?
I think the best way to find me today is to go and look for my papers. I'm less active today. You can see why. I'm less active on the Twitter and almost not active at all on other media. And also on the blog, I don't. I put most of my. I'm writing a book, so I decided to put the whole theory in a book because it's spread over several papers. And I think that the last thing that I want to leave is a book where everything is put together. The theory
Excellent.
deserves a book.
Yeah,
So on top of these papers, I'm writing a book. So I'm
excellent.
busy like crazy, yeah.
Wow. And the book will be written in English.
In English, yeah.
Excellent. Wow. Well, like I said, I love Living Paleo Style, and you're right. Like, if it's so much work to get the studies published, you might as well put it in a book so that all of us can access it anyway. I very much look forward to that coming out, and
Okay.
really, really appreciate all of your work and everything you do to get this out there. And thank you so very much for everything you do, and thank you for taking time to be on our show again today. We really appreciate you, Dr. Miki Ben-Dor.
Okay. Thank you, Casey. Bye.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
All right, and this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.